So, second day of Cana, third day of Rohats. So everybody should be feeling a bit achy and a bit stressed at this time. You should be beginning to get comfortable with the sitting and enjoying it more. So today I decided that I would talk about the three refuges. I actually decided that on the first night when we chanted the Tisarana, and then Frank asked about it, which absolutely confirmed it. So the Tisarana is Pali, is probably pretty old. A lot of old records well into BC about the Tisarana. Interestingly, in the idea of three things is in India, repeating something three times is lucky, and has a long history. A lot of their prayers and spells are made three times over. A lot of the stuff we do is three times over, and there's a current film that's out, Beetlejuice, that has three in it again. So the Chinese have a different importance to three, and heaven, earth, and man in between, or humans, as we'd say more correctly today. Heaven, earth, and man. Man being the negotiator between the two, intermediary. So the Tisarana, I know we all know it pretty well. Buddham Saranam Gacchami. It's interesting, Sanskrit. I'm not a linguist. In fact, as a dyslexic, I struggle with language, although it fascinates me even more. Buddham is locative, so it's going to the Buddham. Saranam agrees with it, and Gacchami is the same as we chant on the Heart Sutra behind me here. Gate Gate. The Ga means to travel. So Gacchami, I go to. Gate, it will go forward, or it's gone forward. So I go to Buddha, who's a refuge. I go to Dharma, that's a refuge. And thing is, how is it a refuge? And that is an idea that has developed over a long period of time. The first version of it here was somewhat thought of like a castle, a refuge, a place that you go for comfort, to hide. So in the Buddha, I can find a refuge. And same with all the three refuges. They originally had that meaning. And there's one of the earliest sutras of it is the Jagataka Sutta, which is the Banner Sutra. Not very popular these days, but very popular as a protective sutra in the East. And it simply says that a lot of people try to find a refuge, in all different places. They call on various gods, and it gives a long list of them: Ishvara, Shiva, Brahma, and in the great battle between the gods and the Asuras, some of the gods got frightened and they called on their leader Ishvara and got behind his banner and attacked. That's what the sutra says. And the Buddha says, well, it may or may not work for you. It's a play here on, do I look at you lot or do I see the screen? I can't do both. But, as you're here in person, I should look at you. These refuges may or may not be a refuge for you, but if you think to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, they will be a refuge to you because they are free of lust, free of ignorance, and free of fear. And the thought of death does not terrify them, and you can take comfort in them. That's the earliest form of refuge. It still carries that a little bit, but not as much for us. And I did make some notes just to remind myself all that I see, actually. These notes are back in May. So 3 refuges in Mahayana Zen. A refuge in the Buddha is to find refuge in the fact of the original face before you were born, before arising of the skandhas, where there can be no dukkha or fear. So that's the Buddha, and the Buddha, so that's the Buddha of your own mind, your Buddha nature, your original sense of Buddha, and that would be within your sphere of knowledge. Refuge in the Dharma is to find the timelessness of the Buddha's truth that is permanently expressed within samsara. So the Dharma doesn't lie outside of samsara. And the idea that nirvana is somewhere else, it's a place, is long gone. Many people still think of it that place. I want to get to nirvana, but we're people are Zen, we don't think that way, hopefully. Refuge in the Sangha is to find the safety of the community of beings that is always teaching the fact that life of sentience is without separation, is full of support for everyone. This is best exemplified by the Sangha best exemplified by the 8 beings who are in, don't know. One of the problems with dyslexia, my own handwriting becomes even more strange to me. I often ask my wife, what did I write there? So I can't make the last word out. Flavour doesn't make any sense. 8 beings who are purified is the sense that I meant there. So Buddha is it's the something with the jina. So it's the bravery. Jina, the Buddha, that's not another word that's not used much. Jina, it means the victorious one. You'll see it in the sutras, especially in Mahayana Sutra. The Buddha is the fearlessness of the jina. Dharma is the identity of samsara and purity, emptiness. Sangha is all beings support one another in the awakening without the idea of separation. So, we think of Sangha, and especially in Deep Bow, we speak very much of Sangha as being our group, our friends, our supporters, our fellow travellers on the way. In the earlier Buddhism, the 8 purified beings were the arhats and people on the path, or the bodhisattvas and mahasattvas. And so the more of the earlier sense of the people that we could go to refuge for in a battle. So that's not how we think of it. So going to refuge is something that you need to do as a Buddhist. You have to have some idea of what you mean by it. You can make your own idea up. It's not wrong and right and wrong much in Buddhism. I used to have a friend, Mr. Wong, in Bangkok. He was a Buddhist butcher, and he was also a slaughterer. So he killed his own animals and then cut them up and sold the meat. And I said to him, "How can you call yourself a Buddhist?" And he said, "Well, I do the best I can. I inherited this slaughterhouse from my father. I have 30 odd relatives that I have to feed and employ. And I take no delight in killing the animals. I feel quite terrible for them. I try to make them as comfortable before I kill them. And I go down to the temple, and my only hope is in next life, I don't have to be a butcher." So that's a very different way of thinking about things to the West, right and wrong, media enlightenment now. I need it now. I don't believe in more lifetimes. Before tea would be nice. So it's just the gain in mind. You want something. That's not taking refuge in that sense. In the Mahayana sense, it's much broader. The Buddha is the truth, the teaching example, the stuff that is given to us, the dharmas that are given to us by the Nirmanikayas, such as Sakyamuni in this Kalpa, or the Dharmakaya, the Dharma body of the Buddha that is everywhere and permanent, and Sambhogakaya, which is the enjoyment of realizing that it's the bliss body. So, and those three ideas are emanations from your own Buddhahood, your own Buddha nature, and are realizable for yourself. The Dharmakaya is always out there. It's always present. Nirmanikayas come and go as the time as beings need them and the time is appropriate. They take different forms, and there's lots about different teachings. They teach the lesser vehicle to slower learners, but they're all one Buddha, and they're all one Buddha of your own Buddha nature. So the Sixth Patriarch actually has an entire chapter in the Platform Sutra, which I would recommend to anybody who's serious about Buddhist teaching, and particularly Zen teaching. He's a common Zen master to all schools of Zen, and way before Rinzai and Soto split. So anyway, the Sixth Patriarch says people go to refuge for Buddha, but they don't even know who he is. They don't know where to find him. How can he be a refuge to you if you can't speak to him and can't find him? And that's because you're all looking for a discrimination of your mind. Buddha is something that is out there, something that is separate from you, something that you can approach. And he said, that's just, well, I'm putting words in his mouth because I'm sure he didn't say crazy talk, but that is, in effect, crazy talk, because the Buddha is in your own mind, from your own original nature, your Buddha nature. So you don't need to go and find it anywhere, you just have to allow it to emanate. And he says people can't do that because they, through beginningless time, which is why I started on the repentance yesterday, since beginningless time have undertaken acts of greed, hatred and delusion, and have clouded the sky but the sun and moon are always up there above the clouds. And when the clouds get thin, you can see them hazy. When the clouds are gone, you can see them clearly. And so through our practice, we see the cloud, we see the sun and the moon directly. There's nothing in between. So, interestingly, the RAF in World War II, Royal Air Force fighting, used to say about the potential of being killed, it's always sunny up top. So if you get high enough, you're above the clouds, it's always sunny. And the Dharma is nothing other than, the Sixth Patriarch said that people who go to the Dharma for refuge, again, don't know where to find it. They're looking for it as something separate. The Dharma is to be found in samsara. It is here. It's not separate. It's not a different thing. The truth is always manifest before you. And then he gets on a really different track, Frank. So it's compared with Sangha in the sense of the Pali Buddhist teaching. He says the Sangha are those good qualities in your mind of kindness, compassion, friendship, teaching, helping one another, forbearance, patience, the paramis. They are your Sangha. They're not somewhere else. They're not necessarily other beings, because if you find yourself on a lonely mountain, how can you go to refuge in the Sangha unless you find the Sangha that is within yourself? So several of you know, because I've spoken to you, I'm particularly drawn to the Yogacarya school, which is the mind only, that the world is a manifestation of my own mind. Each one of you is in my mind, and I'm in each one of your minds, because you've got your own mind consciousness. And so we are here now in a shared consciousness. So very much like Carl Gustav Jung, the shared consciousness of the world. I think of it as a shared karma between all of us. We have certain karma that's in common. At this time, karma has brought us from wherever we come from, by whatever method and route. And mine's been here, there, and everywhere. I left South London, and now I'm in California. It's a miracle in itself. It's a mystery, and it's a miracle. It's a wonder. It's beyond fathoming. I can tell you all the steps I took to get here, but how they came together with the conditions and how they overlap, that I'm able to find each one of you who are my Sangha. That in itself is a wondrous mystery. Myoshin, mind of wonderment, is the character. I don't think it's up now. Also in the Dharmakaya is to remember that the teaching of the Dharmakaya is twofold: emptiness and wisdom. And people will be drawn to one or other depending on their cause and conditions. I had not a particularly nice life when I was little. So, emptiness just appeals to me. So, somebody once said to me, when you was a little boy, what was your refuge? Where did you go? Did you have a favourite tree or a tree house? I said, I used to dissociate. So, no. After the psychologists here, they know exactly what I mean. So, but I don't dissociate now. So what does it mean to go to refuge? It means, and I could give a pretty well a few words talk, because all my talks come down to the same thing: it's down to practice. You want to find a refuge, practice. You'll find the refuge in yourself, and other refuges will become apparent to you. But if you don't practice, then you're just guessing. I think I sent a lot of people email when Trump won, and many, especially my academic friends, were all gnashing their teeth and pulling their hair out. And I said, collective karma is such that you just have to accept it. It's not right or wrong, it just is. And I said, and to cheer it up, there's the song, I put a little song in the end, living the life of illusion. So it's actually one that I sing to myself when I get fed up. That's me. So, but if you're getting fed up, really, it is just a discriminating mind, picking and choosing what you think is to your own advantage. Tathagata, which is related to the word Tathagata. So tata, thus, gata, going, is the same again as gata, gate. Tathagata, he who's gone to thusness, or he that flows through everything in this thusness. And suchness, tata, is if you are really observing moment to moment, it is just thusness. It is just this. And that's probably your best refuge, because you're never without it. So, lots of people for questions. So let's try to keep them short. So the difficult one comes first.
To the story of the butcher.
Yeah.
The Buddhist butcher both starts with BU.
Yeah.
The Bubu, who I mean, what a condition to end up in that case, and yet he's practicing no killing life because he's sustaining life, like over and over and over, and impermanence. I mean, just that's really a profound profession for a Buddhist to have, actually.
Yeah, for him, he was a very devout man and very friendly, very kind. And Native Americans, when you speak to them, they mostly don't take great delight in hunting. They are pleased they had to kill because they're going to eat, but they cherish the life that they've taken, and they use it just like in our meal chant. They take this as nutrient, as medicine for sustaining our practice. And so it is giving life. I can tell you, though, in Thailand, lots of people look down on him.
Oh, sure.
Even the ones eating his meat.
Yeah. So brings me to a second question, which is the second kaya. There's the Dharmakaya, the Nirmanakaya, and then the Sambhogakaya.
Right.
Could you tell us your understanding of that?
So the Sambhogakaya is the realization of the other two kayas. So it is the manifestation. Dogen would call it actualization of the Genjo Koan. As trust me, this is purely my understanding. It's not.
It's often called the bliss body.
Yeah, bliss. And
So it's enlightenment, sort of dropping off the body and mind. That's also what the purpose of that is.
right. So the bliss body is that realization of the truth that manifests in you, and what could be more blissful than enlightenment? Mm. That it's not showering in ass milk and eating honey and being waited on. It's not that kind of bliss. It's pure bliss.
And so Carl Jung I read a description of his understanding of Sambhogakaya, and he pointed to archetypes, and those kind of patterns are what are in the Sambhogakaya. I want to bring it back to the butcher though, and by when you take a life to give life to others, in a way, it's like him doing this deed that others look down upon him on, but he knows he has to do it because of all these people he has to feed. In a way, it's from one bliss body to the next. It's really a remarkable profession he had. A lot of blood for a lot of red lines.
Yeah. So yeah, he was looking after many families plus his customers. Without food, we all die. That's why the most important person in the monastery is the cook. There's an entire chapter in the Shoba Genzai on homage to the Tensho. So, tomorrow we might actually make you do a circumambulation and a clap, which is the traditional thing to do at the end of a session. Lana, Ilana.
So first of all, a little comment about the song of liberation. In the movie, which is one of my top favorite movies, Life of Brian, Jesus is on a cross, nailed to the cross, and the other is Ibarra, and they are tapping, and they're singing, always look right side of life. Sambhogakaya. So, what I've been taught and which I've come to appreciate very much is the intimacy that we feel with the Dharma when it's no longer knowledge. There's a sense of deep pleasure from the realization that it's right there with you, given freely.
Well, where else could it be?
And it's so intimate, and it's so sensual, and it's so pleasurable.
There's no closer intimacy than with yourself. In your own realization.
And that's, to me, that's Sambhogakaya.
Yeah. So I once tried an answer to a koan. The Sambhogakaya is when the Nirmanakaya teaches the Dharmakaya to the Sambhogakaya. And that's pretty clever. Who are these people was the answer. So you can't individualize them. Online? Any questions, comments?
Growing up, I never came across the word refuge until coming to Buddhism, perhaps a reference in a novel or something. But as an emotional concept, it was not part of my culture. And so I came to the word refuge without bias or opinion or association, particularly negative associations or positive. And so for me, the concept of refuge is does not begin with safety or sanctuary or secure place. It started as an emotional, spiritual concept. And for me, has remained as one of the few pure boundless Dharma gates. And to have, as you were saying earlier, Sensei, this mystery of this Sangha at this time in this place, this Uji, is just fills me with joy continuously. And the refuge is a place of relaxation and joy. And I can see how that just arises in me out of causes and conditions, fortunate ones, by not having the word be slanted in a way when I first met it. And I imagine for others, there are other things in Buddhism that are the same for them. And I just want to share that one from me with the Sangha and encourage each person to find something like that, that is a place, a gate that they came in that has a certain purity without not defilements, because that word has an attachment to it, but a gentleness where one can sit in peace with it and be it.
So what I think you're saying is that because you didn't have a concept attached to the word, you weren't adding your own take on it. But a refuge is definitely a place of safety. The Arctic Wildlife Refuge isn't a load of polar bears up there feeling really comfortable with one mother. It's just that we don't kill them up there as much. So there is that. But of course, if you live in scary times or in lawless times and you find somewhere that's safe, it is a happy, blissful place. So, and all Dharma falls down when you try to explain it.
Nick talked about it, about the safe space, remember? He said, I want to be the kind of father that the children run to for safety no matter what.
Yeah. Much better than having them dissociate. Or run the mother, which is what I did. Spent lot of time looking around, thinking my dad was in a good mood or a bad mood. Brady.
What do you think?
There was nothing special about it. I went from Nick to Brady. We should explain. Brady usually waits to the last. He's the last person to speak.
There's a lot of people that haven't.
Yeah.
Historically.
Historically, yeah.
Trying to change it up there.
Yeah. So today we're with Miss Benny. We could have gone anti-clockwise. Anyway, Brady.
Let's see. Do you have? I'm trying to think of a question. What's generally your experience after long periods of meditation? What is kind of like a sense that you feel you gleaned something, and what's the something, and how do you describe it? Or do you feel enriched, and how?
I thought Doug was going to give me the difficult question.
Good one.
Yeah, it's a good one. The easiest way to say is that you've got to experience it yourself. It's when you know it, you know it. From long periods of meditation, you can just hurt. You can be angry. You can be distraught. These are all people that go into meditation with an expectation of something. When I went into meditation, I actually had none of that. As I said yesterday, I was in Java, looked at the Buddha and thought, well, I like reading Buddhist stuff. I do this bit of meditation, don't know. I just think I'll become a Buddha. So 40 odd years later, I still don't have a lot of expectations for it. Yeah, you know, things arise and things go, and some stick around more. But to say there's something, I don't think. Interestingly, you just stripped off some of my mind layers there, because I said that in pure London accent. I caught my own, I think, with an F instead of a TH. So I have learnt at Penn State to talk to the students with a slightly modified accent when they all used to sit there like dogs. You know, when you talk to a dog, it's like they couldn't quite get what I was saying, but they knew I was talking to them. So yeah, I'm not escaping, but just keep going. What do you find when you've been meditating a long time?
Generally a sense of serenity, the internal serenity, or a sense of it's okay. It's okay. Something settles, the deep settling on almost a non-human level and a human level, but like kind of both or something. It's like an awareness that's deeper.
So the awareness, I'd agree with. Yeah, that expresses itself. Feelings are good or bad can arise and go.
Sure.
So if you only look to meditate to feel good, boy, I just heard of this bliss body, I'm going to get some of that. Yeah, that's basically the road to phantom and death. Don't pick and choose, just be aware. Chris. Chris is fine too. Yeah, Chris.
I don't remember putting my hands up.
That's all right. I got fed up of waiting for people. I just been pointing at people.
Oh, you didn't hear? If you don't want to talk, put your hand up.
Well, let's see, refuge. Well, while you were talking, I guess well, let's see, I was trying to think of how I take refuge. When it comes to the Buddha part, I uh, knew about Buddha's life. I remember reading Siddhartha as a teenager, and I just really thought it was an interesting story, um, especially about his relationship with his friend Govinda, and but I never really felt like I've never really felt like I could identify with this as kind of like a historical figure. So the only thing I have done with that one is that I've learned over time to just kind of have a sense for that Buddha nature in myself. And so that's my relationship with
Which is what the Sixth Patriarch said. And that sense of that kind of refuge and relationship would work really well with the prisoners, because in prison, a lot of them don't have many friends, might not have any friends, and yet they can always find that comfort in themselves.
Yeah.
Thank you. Was Benny's hands up saying thank you? Or?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, what comes to mind is if I try to look deeply, what refuge means to me is first and foremost, I guess, it's the present moment. And there's my body. So and then there's the awareness that connects both of them into this singularity. So
the body as a refuge is okay. As long as you don't try to hold on to it and keep it static, because it's always subject to conditions arising and can become quite a danger. Doesn't mean to say you've got to revile yourself, but it's again the middle way of balancing between rejecting and accepting. Someone once asked the Buddha, where would you find nirvana? He said it's 6 feet long. It's in your body. Cleveland.
I guess when I first started studying Buddhism, on my own, that was one of the first things I did was got a mala, and I started reading Jack Kornfield, Thich Nhat Hanh. They explained how to take refuge, and I would chant, I take refuge in the Buddha. Just over and over on the mala. And that's how I sat for the first. So I was 15 years old until I was in my 30s. And so I always felt I had a really strong idea of when I take refuge in the Buddha, I'm taking refuge in the Buddha that was a human, that was a man who accomplished this, a man just like me. So, and I've always had a problem, like I said, problem with authority or people who put themselves on pedestals or people who are exalted or anything. I felt like the Buddha didn't do that. Other people did that to him, but I always felt that his message was what drew me to the Buddha was one, try it for yourself. If you don't believe me, and you can do it, right?
Mhm. Yeah, that is the beauty.
And to me, that was taking refuge in the Buddha, was believing that this was a human who relieves suffering in himself. And then the Dharma, much simpler to me, was just the teachings of that guy, how he did it.
Right.
But so, here's the roadmap on how the Buddha ended suffering, and it's pretty simple. And then the hardest one for me always was Sangha, because I was always practicing in isolation.
Right.
So I, a young teenager in the 90s in Ohio, there's not a lot of Buddhists, fellow Buddhists around to hang out with. So, well, it's probably AI.
No. I think it's me breaking into Cockney. Confirm which language you're speaking. London English.
But not until I found Zen did I find Sangha and take. So I always saw taking refuge in the Sangha prior to having a flesh and bone Sangha was like all my Buddhist ancestors who were Buddhists before me are my Sangha, and they've upheld this practice and brought it forward. And some of them have, through the verbal transmission and then just through all the Buddhist traditions. So I saw this all Buddhists as my Sangha, even though I was kind of practicing isolation and stuff. And I still, so even now I still have kind of a double entendre when I take refuge in Sangha. It's all of the Buddhist ancestors, as well as all of my current small Sangha, and all Buddhists still, and also my personal Sangha, all of you.
So the Six Patriarchs' position on that would only expand that a little bit to say you can take Sangha in all those people, good or bad, everybody on the earth, if you just recognize their good qualities, not their bad. So
makes sense.
And yeah.
And then when you were, and your talk was fantastic. And I've been chanting the refuges in Pali for 10 or 12 years now, having no clue what they meant. So I was like, when you were going down, I'm like making it, So,
yeah. So
I would love to.
Yeah. So the first word is the second one is Dutiyampi. That same root as dual, just means two. And Tatiyampi is ta, three. Don't know why three is th in so many languages.
But yeah, I think it's this is kind of a foundational or fundamental Buddhist talk or teaching.
So in Thailand, at least, and in most of Asia, to be counted as a Buddhist, you need do no more than take refuge. Sila is an added thing, but if you've taken the refuges, you're already a Buddhist.
It's fine.
It's okay. Yeah, I could call on you by name, but I don't know.
Jacqueline.
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 Yeah.
That's all.
Say it again. Chinese?
Yes.
Say it again.
Jia-in.
Jia-in.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I lived in Hong Kong, so I should be able to
I'm from Taiwan.
Yeah, Mandarin. I recognize it, Mandarin.
Yes. So really appreciate the talk and thank you for having me. Yeah. So I was struck by when you said not only the butcher story, but also when you said at the end about the email that you wrote to your friends about like the new president that we have, and how and also hearing what everybody's saying, it's kind of make me think about Sangha. because like in the butcher story, you said this guy basically inherited this butcher shop. It's kind of like a family inheritance or inherited karma, and that's the causes and condition that this guy had, and he was willingly accepting it. It's not about right or wrong. And you're also then talking about the letter that email that you wrote to your friends, new president, and how this is a collective karma, and we willingly accept it, willingly practice it. As we were talking about how you can avoid London here, and this became your kind of like interesting causes and condition, like unexplainable, was how somehow like here you are with everybody in this room, and this is our collective karma, collective sangha, and how the willingness of like it's not about right or wrong, that person's fault or this person's shit, I don't do this. It's about I'm just very moved by all this like pointing in this concept of sangha.
Yeah, you can always find good in people.
Yeah.
I mean, President Trump's really good at combing hair. I can think of something more, maybe. Down at the last two. Okay, Charles.
You said earlier that we always have the capability of returning to ourselves, sorts. And we can return to our breath. And the thoughts, the feelings, the sensations, the emotions, there's a continual plethora of all of this happening simultaneously, but we can return to the breath. And if there's a question in there, it's when you return to your breath, what do you feel that you are experiencing or attempting to experience? Are there different levels of it that you would say, or I'm just sort of curious how you might phrase that or characterize that?
So paying attention to the breath is just bare attention and clear comprehension. You don't need to put anything else onto it. When you slip away from it, Okamura Sensei says that return in itself is Satori. That is Zazen. When you realize that you slipped away and you return yourself gently, that is truly Zazen. If you've not slipped away from your breath, or you have never actually found your breath, neither of those are Zazen. But Zazen is the act of constantly returning and settling.
So, no, I was going to continue on that one.
Refuge in the Sangha. I think we all go through many different permutations of what it means. Like when we're feeling at a loss, Sangha feels like what we want to be surrounded by. When there's work to get done, Sangha's there to get it done, and if it's not happening, it's there to point it out. And
spoken like a true abbot. I said spoken like a true abbot.
And then when, I thought you said rabbit. And and you can forget the refuge part of that and so when fundamentally to Nick's point of like creating this safe space of where Sangha becomes a safe space too. There's many other elements that show up there of tenderness and kindness and consideration and anticipation and sadness because of loss of like, oh. And so when there's loss, sometimes loss can get not just be, oh, it can be, what? Where were you? And which is angry. And yet the loss is actually hurt, you know, feeling hurt or feeling sad. And so it's important in Sangha when these different feelings arise of angst, anger, and so on, that under that is this sadness for refuge and also for the refuge in what the meaning of Sangha sometimes can be, because we can feel it from time to time. And then there are times where we don't feel it, like, no, I feel so sad and I'm mad about it. And so it's what do we do except to come back to the breath, come back to Satori of awakening again, back in Zazen. Here it is. And it's new again. Just like for the butcher, each time it's new again. A new death, a new rebirth, a new sustenance. And it's how to use in the phraseology of those who do journeys, to trust, to let go. What's the third one? I could never be a secretary. I could be anyway. Open, be open. Trust, let go, open. And in a way, that process is what maybe rejuvenates the meaning of what all of this is.
Yes. Long as it doesn't slip into discriminating mind and clinging and pushing away. If the Sangha is without borders, without edges, and it's inclusive, and that's where you can look on the good part of it. I mean, even in the Buddha's lifetime, there was 218 rules. 244, I think, for females, if I remember rightly. I had slightly more. In one of the Chinese Vinayas rules for monks, there's 440. And if you read those rules, an awful lot of them are like, I will not be putting my dirty washing out in front of my neighbour's kuti. You know, there's an awful lot of rules just trying to make a large group of people get on harmoniously. It's not easy. And can't remember who said it now. Somebody was going to Tassajara, and proudly told Coburn, and Coburn said, "You'll know what hell feels like soon." The man from Tassara sits very still. But no, there's a lot of friction in living together. I mean, I got shouted at once for bowing too much. Okay. Yolanda.
Everybody tries the best they can at different levels. And if the tone of the Sangha is about that, about intention, then people find the skillful means. We learn from each other. And there's no greater skillful means than this. That's it. It's the greatest skillful means. What's wrong?
Yeah. If you lived in the corporate world, you'd probably get fired for doing that.
I did.
These days, I'd like to pat you on the shoulder as a mark of encouragement. Would that be okay?
Actually, it's as you know, I did.
Yeah.
And in those days, I underestimated the importance of that.
Yeah. No, I would question to some degree that people do the best they can. Some people's idea of what best is pretty wrong. Oh, in this Sangha. Yeah, and within the Sangha. But if you take the Sangha of all humanity, you have to just pick out that when they are trying their best to do their best. But there's a lot of people who take pleasure in seeing other people's discomfort. And you have to recognize that. When you recognize it, you can deal with it skillfully yourself.
I had a couple of metaphors that were kind of swirling in my head. I just want to share them. I saw a Christian sermon once at a church, and I don't remember the pastor's name, but he gave a wonderful sermon about the acorn, the difference between like an acorn and an oak tree. Whereas like, you could imagine taking refuge in an oak tree, like in the shade of an oak tree, or you build a house out of an oak tree. Or oak tree has a lot of like useful properties. So, I mean, in some ways, when I think about taking refuge, I think of sort of a great oak tree that you can rest under, take shelter under the oak tree. But in his sermon, he talked about there's also like the acorn, which looks nothing like an oak tree that you doesn't provide but a bit of shade or a bit of food.
Yeah, I've heard that before, actually. I have a very vague idea that it comes out of the Talmud. May the seed be full of tomorrow.
There's like taking refuge in the mighty oak tree, but then there's also like taking refuge in the acorn, which doesn't really do anything for you at the moment, which is a lot of what Zazen has felt like for me in the past. I guess I've experienced both Zazen as the acorn, and later, like the more I like took refuge in it and dedicated myself sitting it, the more it became like an oak tree for me that kind of help me see the situation I was in and let go of things. The other metaphor that was in my mind was I guess there's a quote by Kodo Sawaki where he says, sitting, trying to get enlightened is like being on a train and running, to try to get there faster. Is used like practicing. So I guess whereas like I don't know, if our practice is an acorn, like trying to get enlightened in his view, there's like gaining mind or zazen, that's good for something that's sort of like running on a train. But I guess it's just sort of like being on the train and sitting down, I guess is like we're practicing without expectation. And that was one of like the phrases that helped me kind of transition my practice, was when I heard Okumura Roshi say there's no such thing as good or bad zazen. So we just kind of like take like absolute refuge in zazen without scrutinizing it, without saying like this is good, this is bad, or am I enlightened yet, or am I, or whatever. It's just absolute sitting, I guess, was the best way that I could understand it.
Yeah, that comes back to Dogen. That, we sit because we're enlightened because we sit. And there is nothing to be gained by it. I can't remember who said it, but who is, I don't remember sources greatly because having been a trained researcher, I got fed up of having to quote everybody. So I just pick out the ideas I like and forget who said it. So I apologize to those that I'm not giving credit to, but meditation is useless. I practice useless meditation. Hey, it's useless.
Mr. Hawkins says good for nothing.
Good for nothing. Thank you. Yeah, it's good for nothing, which is, of course, a play on it.
Yeah.
Emptiness. Clever. Did you have a point?
Oh. Yeah, I was looking at Brady.
No, we've tortured Brady.
And maybe there was a reason for that. It suddenly appeared to me that taking refuge may also mean internalizing. Internalizing. And when I look at you all, and I try to see you all as myself, all your aspects. And then I draw it all in. I breathe it all in. And so that's where I feel that I can rest and be safe from fear.
So
maybe also if I internalize Buddha and Dharma, that's taking refuge in the deepest sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and as far as Sangha,
but mostly Sangha, I would say.
Yeah, Maida always used to say that building a good Sangha is feeling safe to sleep. You feel safe to sleep somewhere. So it's well past 3. If we have, no, you don't have to. We usually do all speak, but often people are saying, no, I have nothing to add or at the moment. That's fine. We like to give everyone the opportunity to speak, but if they don't want to speak, we don't punish them either, other than Brady. Because he always has something good to say. It's just a bit shy of bringing it forward. And we like to tease Brady. Okay, thank you very much.
Let's do a closing chant. May our intentions equally extend to every being and place with the true merit of the Buddha way. Beings are numberless, we vow to save them. Delusions are inexhaustible, we vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, we vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable, we vow to be it. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye, Zoom world.
Computers is crashing.